Let's return now to this development today. The bill that puts in place the referendum on the voice to Parliament. Julian Leeser joins me. He's the former Shadow Attorney General and former Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians. Julian Leeser, thanks for your time. Today, you reiterated in supporting the passage of the bill that there are Liberals across the country supporting this. When you say that, is it a very small minority we're talking about?
No, there are Liberal members of Parliament in this Parliament. There are Liberal members of Parliament in many of the state parliaments. There are former members of Parliament at the state and federal level. And there are many Liberal Party branch members and supporters right across the country. One of the reasons for the formation of the group...
In your seat as well?
In my seat, absolutely. I have Dom Perrottet, the former Premier of New South Wales, who's a supporter of The Voice, as one of my state members. I have Matt Keane as one of my state members. Both of them are supportive of The Voice. I think in the state parliament in New South Wales, we've had people like James Griffin, we've had people like Mark Courret, both of whom were ministers in the previous government, who've come out and announced their support for The Voice in recent weeks, and I suspect we will have more members of Parliament.
And branch members?
And branch members, absolutely, yes.
Because they're obviously the high-profile figures. What about the people that show up at your branch meetings and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Well, look, I can only speak for my own conference, but as I've addressed Liberal Party branches in other areas too, Liberals are coming up to me and saying that they want to support this, that they want to be able to contribute to the Yes campaign and go and campaign for it. It's obviously not all Liberals. It's a matter about which reasonable people can disagree, but there are lots of prominent Liberals. Take Tasmania, where the Liberal Premier Jeremy Rockcliffe, where his predecessor Peter Gutwein, where Peter Gutwein's predecessor Will Hodgman are great supporters. In my state, I mentioned Dom Perrottet, Mike Baird's another one. You will see more Liberals coming out between now and referendum day. This isn't about politicians. It's ultimately about Australians making a decision to change our constitution, to recognise Indigenous people and to set up a new structure so we can consult Indigenous people about the policies and laws that affect them.
Father Frank Brennan, I spoke to earlier on the program this afternoon, he's landed in a very similar position to you. While he believes there are some risks of future complications with the current wording, he says that regardless of the shortcomings of our Parliament, I will be voting yes, and I say that unequivocally. Do you think most people with those constitutional concerns, like you and Father Frank, will end up backing it like that?
Well, I raised issues in relation to the amendments I put before the Parliament, not because I felt that they were particular stumbling blocks, but because I knew they were stumbling blocks for others. But the bill has passed the Parliament now. We're out of the commentary phase and into the campaign phase. And I'm delighted that Frank Brennan will be joining me to encourage other Australians to vote yes to this. As I've said in other places, it's the status quo that is the biggest danger here. In most referenda, you try and argue if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But the system's broken. A system which sees Aboriginal people 2.5 times more likely to die by suicide than the rest of the population, which sees them 9 times more likely to be unemployed than the rest of the population, which sees an Aboriginal young man more likely to go to jail than to go to university. This is a wonderful country. We're at the top of the league tables on almost every measure, but we've got this gap that hasn't closed, despite goodwill and money. Consulting people and about the policies and laws that affect them in a formal way, I think will help.
Some of your colleagues say it will divide us. We heard Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, Senator Price, in the debate today in the Upper House, very forcefully making that case. What's your response to that?
Well, I think it's very important that those of us who are on the yes case strongly listen to and try to respond to the questions of those people who doubt, and it's important that those people who are on the no case listen to and respond to the desires of Indigenous Australians and others, that this voice may well make a very important difference in their lives. I don't think that this is about dividing Australians. We only make laws about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. They're the only people we make laws on the basis of their race. Given that, we should be able to consult them on those policies and laws.
Mark Kenny in the Canberra Times wrote an interesting piece at the weekend where he argued that the government should offer to only secure the passage of the voice, if it is successful at the referendum, with the coordination and bipartisanship of the opposition. Do you think that's a possibility? Even though Peter Dutton's against it and arguing against it, if it does get up, is that an option where you might be able to win more support that way? The government could say, if it wins, we're going to do this and land on the model with the opposition.
Well, look, that's a matter that's open to the government. I think we should reassure Australians here that What they are voting for is to give the Parliament a mandate to establish this body. The next phase after the referendum will be the design of the body in legislation. The coalition members of Parliament, members and senators, whether it's me or Peter Dutton or anyone else, will participate in that design. I'd encourage the government to engage with my colleagues as much as possible in this. But the decision for Australians more broadly is simply, do we create this mandate for the Parliament to go and establish this important body that will hopefully help us close the gap?
Do you believe that this period of graciousness, as the Prime Minister put it, he says a gracious chapter in the great story of Australia, it'll be a moment of national unity, a chance to make our nation even greater. It didn't sound too gracious in the Parliament today, in the Senate. It was quite a visceral debate at times. Do you think that it can land in that place of unity?
Well, I think it's really important that we lift the standard of debate. And as I say, it's really important for those people like me who are an advocate of the Yes campaign to argue, to answer the questions of those who doubt, just as it's important for people like Senator Hanson or other senators who oppose this to listen to the desires and hopes of those Australians who believe that this will make an appreciable difference. And
today, I should mention to our viewers, you brought this cookie in, the shape of Australia, including Tasmania, so that's well done.
We can never forget Tasmania.
And it includes a quote of your second reading speech that on referendum day, you and your wife will walk down the end of the street to the local school where we will help set up a booth and provide biscuits and sandwiches to everyone, both sides that arrive. Why is, and you're handing this to, obviously me, I appreciate that today, but others around the building, why is that important to you?
Because I think this has to be a moment of unity. I mean, we are one of the luckiest countries in the world. We as Australians get to vote on the changes to our constitution. And whether you're voting yes or whether you're voting no, you're a good Australian. And I think this has to be a moment of national unity. We should celebrate that all of us together are going to have a say on this. And so I'm not just going to feed those people who are helping me hand out yes how to vote cards, but I want to feed the people who are handing out the no how to vote cards because they're doing their patriotic duty too. The importance of this map of Australia, including Tasmania, is to remind people that we're all one people and one country.